2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
Is it ever healthy to not disclose some things in your relationship?
Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery. Brannon, this will be a fun one today. Always get people thinking. This is your question today, something you got going on in your own kind of work, it sounds like. So this will be good. Before we do that, we got another couple of reviews. So I'm going to read one today. This is a really good review. It comes from Hero One. It says, "What I have needed. Thank you guys. I've been a listener for a short time, in recovery for a long time, married for about half the time. I want to say that episode number 144 was a huge help to me. I felt a little crazy because I know I have codependent tendencies with my wife, but I also felt that I haven't been validated in my marriage. What it comes down to is that I feel very little response from my wife in any of my bids for connection, and your discussion helped me see that clearly. I know you know that this is more complicated than I can write in a review, but I have a clear understanding of what I'm experiencing. Thank you so much. Maybe you could cover this in another episode a little. What are some ways to re-engage with my wife when she misses a bid for connection?"
Oh, I like it. That's a good question. Well, thank you for sharing that review. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I love to hear that it's getting you thinking, that it's helping to validate some of your experience.
Oh, Tyler, nice beard.
Yeah, thanks, man. For people who want to actually see us, you can go to Spotify and actually watch the episodes if you're listening on some other platform. Not that you want to, because it's not like Brannon and I are much to look at behind microphones, but
I don't know, with that beard.
the beard makes me look about 20 years older than I am, and
holy
makes me feel
cow,
about
you
the
are
same.
old. You're old. Look at that gray.
I know, it's not even gray. It's like pure white. So actually, it's funny because I went on this like little kind of cattle drive with one of our cousins a couple of weeks ago, and so I didn't shave over the weekend like I usually do. And then my wife saw my facial hair and she said, "Hey, I like your beard. Why don't you keep growing it?" And then I happened to like also I was in some church leadership in our church, and I just got released from that position, and so I didn't have like the pressure, the expectation to not have facial hair anymore. So now I'm about 2
so
weeks.
For all the codependent reasons, you're growing a beard now.
Yeah, basically. it's like I had this I had a client the other day. It was funny. He came in and he's like, he's grown his hair out long like yours. He's not quite, he's kind of in that awkward stage like you were. Yours is actually nice flowing locks now, like, Fabio. But he's like, I said, "Oh, so how you growing it out?" And he's like, "Actually, my wife's growing it out." I was like, "Hey, I can get behind that." Like, that's
we got to talk about some boundaries, guys.
That's what this is too. So,
well, I always thought you'd grow of the three brothers, you'd grow the best beard. I mean, you're the hairiest. You got hair in places that we don't want to talk about. So I thought you'd grow a nice thick beard. So it's good to see it.
Thanks, man. I don't know how much longer it'll last, but we'll keep it for a while until I at least overcome my codependence tendencies, I guess.
Well, okay, let's get into the topic here. I want to kind of set this up by just kind of talking about what I see happen a lot and what you've seen happen many, many, many times. And this is what we see. I see a couple come into treatment, and the disclosure, we call it D-Day, the discovery day, has happened fairly recently. Maybe it's the third or fourth discovery day that they've been through as a couple. They're finally coming to treatment, and the spouse is feeling betrayed, and the trust is shattered, and a natural reaction to that is to set some things up in order to control the situation, in order to feel a sense of safety again. And a lot of times what happens is there's a hyper focus on sobriety, and there's a hyper focus on checking in to make sure that certain things are happening in order to be safe. And so sometimes I've seen therapists do this a lot, actually. They set up systems that undermine trust building with the intention to try to create some safety. So in other words, they are destroying safety with the intention to try to create some safety. Because it creates this one up, one down position in the relationship. It creates a lack of actual connection, because what they're actually just connecting on is fear and control. And ultimately it doesn't rebuild trust in the relationship. Yet it's so common. It's common for a couple to want those systems in place early on, and for therapists to actually establish those systems. What do you think about that, Tyler?
Yeah. So let's, I want to back up a little bit, Brannon, because when that D-Day sort of happens, it kind of blows everything to smithereens in terms of emotional safety, trust, stability, all the stuff we talk about, like attachment theory. So it makes sense that especially the betrayed partner, but the couple themselves will be looking for a way to try to find some level of stability or get things to go what they call back to normal, even though normal wasn't working to begin with. And so there's principles behind what they're doing that are understandable, that are valid, that are kind of necessary, but the pursuit of those principles often actually creates more of the thing that the couple doesn't want because of the way that it's being pursued. So, yeah. So basically what you're saying is like, look, we do want to find a way to have safety. We do need to tap into certain principles of humility and transparency and openness. But what you're saying right now is that you don't think that those principles are best necessarily like pursued in the form of like a daily check-in on sobriety, because the focus on sobriety is actually not going to yield all the things that the partner or the couple is looking for.
Well, I would take it a little deeper than just like talking about a check-in. A check-in is just kind of an example of this fear cycle-based system that to try to recreate safety in the relationship again. That's just one way. But here's the deal, Tyler. Let's mix these ingredients. You have a spouse who is full of fear, and
for good reason.
And for good reason. And maybe there's also some of their own shame in there of I'm not enough. If I were enough, this would have never happened. But there's fear there. There's fear and needing to control. On the other end of it, there's a spouse with their tail between their legs, feeling like I've broken everything. I'm bad. I'm not okay. I want to make this right. But I don't really know who I am because I've been beating myself up for so long because I've been living in secrecy for so long and wallowing in the shame of that secrecy for so long. Okay. So you put those ingredients together. Okay. Fear and control and not feeling safe. I'm bad. I'm not enough. And I've done all this and I'm horrible. Okay. You put those two things together and they intermingle. And what you see is this relationship where the person who's controlling is somewhat giving the orders and saying, this is what we need to do. This is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to go. And the person who is in their shame and who has acted out and made the mistake becomes compliant and tries to do everything they possibly can in order to make it okay. And a couple spins here for a long time. And it actually exacerbates fear in the relationship and undermines safety. And the reason that it does is because the partner who's trying to make it right actually isn't acting in their truth and honesty. They're acting in a place of I would call it actual manipulation. They might not know they're manipulating to try to manipulate things to make them okay again. Right. Which then makes the spouse not feel that security and safety in the relationship.
It still feels
following me.
Yeah. Because the response by the partner who's done the betraying, who is now living in their shame and now doing everything they're being told to do and supposed to do, the motivation for doing those things isn't because I've got a broken heart and I need to change and I'm ready to become somebody different and grow into my truth of who I am. It's all focused on, I've got to hurry and make everything okay. And in a lot of ways, I've got to hurry and make everything okay, not just for my partner, but because that's the only way I can be okay is if they're not mad at me, if they're not upset with me, if they're like, if I know I can't fix the problem, but I'm going to do everything I can to fix the problem, not for them, but for me.
Yeah. Right. And maybe it's both. Maybe it's, I want to fix it for them, but I also deep down hate their discomfort. And so I need to fix it for me too.
I can't really tolerate their discomfort because their discomfort
makes me so uncomfortable.
It makes me so uncomfortable that I will oftentimes say and do things that I don't actually fully agree with.
Yes.
In order to try to keep the peace. But then my partner knows deep down inside that I'm only doing it to keep the peace, which then doesn't bring more trust.
Exactly. So I think there's something that we can't avoid here, which is safety and security and trust in a relationship is built on strength. It's built on strength. It's not built on weakness. And so this leads to something that's very uncomfortable and hard for people to understand, which is that each partner in a relationship, it's healthy for them to show up honest and authentic. And that means boundaried in a relationship. So let me give you an example here of what I'm talking about. Have you heard my Facebook example? I've talked about this before.
You have to remind me.
The spouse comes to, so this is pretty early on in recovery, and comes to her husband and says, and pulls up a laptop and says, pulls up Facebook and says, is she hot? Is she hot? Do you lust after her? And starts pulling up pictures of people they know on Facebook and asking if he's attracted to them or not. Okay. And so his first response was No.
I never noticed those.
What are you talking about? Right.
Right.
So they come into a therapy session and she's triggered and upset and feeling like he's lying to her.
Okay. Because he is.
Yeah. Because he is. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I say, why don't you just be honest with her? Just be really honest with her. And so he goes out, and what do you know? It happens again. And she pulls up, and they're living in a smaller town, and she's pulling up all the people in the town. And he's like, yeah, she's hot. Yeah, she's not. Yeah, she's. So they're going through this. And what do you know? They come into a session, and it's not safe. It's uncomfortable, right? And she's upset. And he says to me, you told me to be honest with her, and this is what I get, right? And so I looked at him and I said, hey, why don't you try this? Be honest with her. And he looked at me like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
I was honest with her.
Yeah. And I say, I want you to show up in your strength. I want you to really be loving with her and kind and honest with her. And he looked at me like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And I said, try this. When it happens again, tell her that you're not comfortable engaging in this activity with her, and that you'd like to talk to Brannon about it in a session. But here in this setting right now, that's not going to work for him. Okay. Then keep on the empathy with her, like understanding why she's pulling it up, where's she coming from. Try to understand where she's really coming from. What's triggering her that day? What's going on inside of her mind about their relationship, about her, about them? Like try to hold space for her, for how she's truly feeling. And you breaking your own truth and your own boundary is not loving her and holding space for her. But because the truth is, for this guy, is he did not feel okay about going through the town Facebook, whatever. And do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, but there's this little the uncomfortable piece of this. And what it is, what is it, Tyler? Do you know? Can you see it?
The uncomfortable piece in the healthy response?
Yeah, in the healthy response. And the uncomfortable piece is, I'm not going to actually answer your question about who I'm attracted to and who I'm not right now.
Right. Which flies in the face of pretty much everything that everyone in recovery, including me, seems to teach, which is you need to become an authentic, fully honest, transparent man.
Right.
Right.
And but here's the deal. It really comes down to his intention as to why he's not. So if he's being honest of, this feels very unhealthy and I want us to progress as a couple and I love you and I want to support you to get healthier, good for him. Hold that boundary. If he truly is trying to hide because he's scared to death of the truth and he's just trying to hide, that's another thing. Right?
Yeah. So how does a partner know the difference between those two things?
It's a consistent honesty over time. And so in that moment, right after D-Day, it's going to trigger stuff when they hold that line. But over time, if he's showing up as a person with strength and boundaries, then she's going to realize he's not fooling me. He's not doing this to pull the wool over my eyes. He really is just being honest with what he feels like works for him and what doesn't. And that trust is built over time. And if you have systems that therapists help set up that undermine this whole thing, then you'll never experience that uncomfortable space, that vulnerable space that has to be there to really know the other person and to really trust them.
Yeah, I think so. So Brannon, I like that you said that, because I know that there's probably two sides of people listening right now. There's a whole bunch of people listening right now going, oh, good, I don't have to say anything anymore.
Don't do that.
Which is what you didn't say. And then there's also another group of people who have been betrayed that are going like, wow, Brannon, you're actually like you're telling them not to be honest and transparent, but that's not what you're doing.
No, not at all.
And really your intention is for the health of the individuals and the relationship, by learning to have that space where a couple has to learn to have that healthy tension of going, you know what, like the balancing act of still being empathetic and understanding while also being boundaried. And you said something earlier, and I want to just point this out. You said strength. Both partners need to show up in strength. What strength is not is coercion, manipulation, compliance, stonewalling.
Right.
None of that is actual strength, even though some people will say it's strength under the guise of doing those things. Strength is the ability to step into some place that's uncomfortable and to maintain authenticity. And
right.
so if I go and if I'm pulling up our nightly Facebook scroll with my wife, and she goes, all right, Tyler, I think we got to the last name starting with N last night. So let's pick up there. And I can go to her and I can say to her, hey, babe, like, I'm not sure this is helping us. And she says, well,
many of you have heard about our in-person retreats. We're really excited about our upcoming Rising Sun retreat. I could talk all day about all the reasons why you should attend, but I'll let those who have attended in the past speak for themselves.
If I had a friend who was contemplating attending this conference, I would say do it. Sign up as soon as you can.
Man, you got to do it. You got to do it. I'll be you guys' advertising arm, because I'm going to tell everybody I know about this conference.
Oh man, I would say, again, I have nothing but positive things to say about it. So
there's no reason not to come.
Definitely attend.
If you have the means, it would be a mistake not to come.
Do it. You won't be disappointed.
Well, I would say it takes a leap of faith to come to one of these things, because you're not going to know what it's going to be coming into it, and it's completely worth it.
Just go for it.
So I would tell that friend that he should definitely come.
It is definitely worth the time, the effort, the money.
If you have any thought whatsoever whether or not you should go, just go.
Even after I signed up, I told my wife I didn't want to come the first day. I was like nervous as all get out. I knew it was going to be uncomfortable, everything about it, but I would look at that person and say, you will never regret.
To help you to know how to find the joy that you're seeking in your life, to do this, take it seriously, and add it to your regimen moving forward. It has been powerful, just incredibly powerful.
If you want to get a better feel for what you might experience and get more information, go to risingsun.org. That's risingsun.org, or find a link in the show notes. Hope to see you in person at the next event.
well, I deserve total honesty and I need to know these things. And then I say, you know what, babe, I actually like your example. This is something we probably ought to talk about in front of our therapist and see if it's going to be healthy. And then she gets upset naturally because that trauma response kicks in and she says, oh my gosh, you're not being honest anymore and you're refusing to share information with me. I can go one of 2 or 3 or 5 different ways, and many of those ways might still be effective if they're authentic.
Yeah.
One way, and this is a way that I will teach my clients to do sometimes, is I'll say, why don't you pump the brakes on the conversation and say, are you sure this is going to be healthy for you? Because I don't think it's going to be healthy.
Yeah.
And if the partner then says, nope, I want to know, then once in a while I'll say, okay, tell them.
Well,
but what you're doing is you're giving them a chance to actually have the experience to learn what's going to be healthy and what's not going to be healthy to actually have a discussion around. Other times I'll say,
Tyler, little side note to that one. Mm-hmm. I think strength is, especially with betrayal, is deep down knowing that I'm an open book. And if you really want to know, I will tell you. I'm not afraid to tell you what is anymore. I can.
Right.
But what I am concerned about is what's healthy for us.
Is it going to be good for us?
Yeah, and for you, is this? And so, like, I just want to make sure we're doing the healthy thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
right.
But with that underneath attitude of transparency, right?
Yeah. And then I can go and I can say, and then we can pick back up with Ann, and I'll be like, yes, she's absolutely gorgeous. And then my wife will go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And I'll be like, it doesn't mean I'm not doing my work. It doesn't mean I'm going to go sit and like lust after her, pursue her, or contact her.
I think it really depends, though, Tyler, on your reasoning for doing that. Because if you're falling into starting on N again because you can't handle her pain at all, then you're not showing up in strength.
And on the other side of that, if I'm jumping into Ann with this smug look on my face, it's like, I'm going to stick it to her.
Screw you. I'm going to show you how unhealthy this is. So let's do this.
Yeah.
That's not
either one of those is actually weakness, and it's not healthy.
Yeah.
But somewhere in the middle, it might be healthy to go, you know what, this pattern isn't working, but I'm willing to have the discomfort of you being upset with me, if that's what you're saying you need, as long as we can also have the discussion as to whether or not the way we're going about this is going to yield the result that we're looking for in the long run.
Yeah. And I think this, and this is hard for the betrayed partner because the trust has been broken.
Yes.
So like the strength really is in that space of, hey, hang on here. Let's stop and really ask, what are we doing here? Like, what's going on here? And when there's not trust there, then the partner's not going to be like, okay, let's stop because I trust you to actually walk me through how unhealthy this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to want to keep going in their fear cycle because the trust isn't there.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
Well, because they've been manipulated in the past, most likely too.
Exactly.
They've been gaslit. They're being taught now to stay firm in what they believe is their gut feeling and their truth. And so it feels almost like counterintuitive to go, oh, wait a minute, but I don't think there's any harm ever with anybody pausing for a minute and getting into curiosity and asking, like, what is my overall goal here? And is this likely to be effective at achieving that overall goal?
Right. So let's talk about the overall goal, Tyler. When we work with couples for a minute, how I was trained way back in the day, and this, I think about this and it's like, geez Louise, like, I was trained to set up check-ins with couples every day, and they would come together at night and he would say, these were my lust triggers. This is where I slipped. This is where I might have had a relapse, So, at school, when I was sitting next to this girl, I had a lust trigger. I texted my sponsor and I dealt with it. And I didn't slip. But later on in the day, when I was eating lunch at the restaurant, there was a girl wearing something and I did slip because I went beyond the 3-second rule so they have this check-in. And this check-in, the way I learned how to set up this check-in was from some people who had been, in quotations, working recovery for a long time, and from therapists who taught me how to set up this check-in. And I noticed something quickly. All the couples that were doing the check-in were getting worse, not better. They're all getting worse, not better. And it's because of what we're talking about, Tyler. Right? So when check-in is about control and not connection, that's the problem. Right.
That's exactly right. So this is something that I actually, it's funny, Brannon, because when we bring up this idea of a check-in, there's a different way of checking in that the couples that actually do it, they get better. And there's an unhealthy way of checking in that's like what you said, that they seem to just stay swirling and spiraling in the same spaces. And here's the difference. There needs to be a format set up for the check-ins that's focused more on curiosity, empathy, and attunement, rather than like reporting like a probation check-in.
One up, one down.
Right. So the check-ins work best when it's a two-way street where both partners get a chance to do a couple of things. And I often will encourage my partners and my couples to actually check in more focused on the emotional comings and goings of the day, the other parts of life that are going on, spiritual, social, other emotional things. And the rule is that the person who's listening can only ask clarifying questions and can only practice showing empathy.
Yeah.
And then they switch roles. And so each partner gets a chance to learn how to practice sharing, at listening, and then showing empathy, which then leads to a greater sense of attunement, a greater sense of communication, a safer platform to actually be able to step into this like discussion now where I could come home and I could say to my wife, like, I'm going to check in with you, babe. Like, how's your day? And instead of me going like, fine, it's like,
fine. I had 3 lust triggers.
I did the 3-second rule 50 times today. And there was one woman that I had to do the 3-second rule on 7 times before I called my sponsor. Like
versus a check it.
You're laughing at that, Brannon, but there's a lot of our listeners right now that are going like, yeah, but that's what you're supposed to do. Right?
I know.
But if I were to come
that's
home,
what's being taught.
Well, yeah, exactly. But if I were to come home and I were to say, hey, here's how my day went. This was the most prominent thing that happened in my day. This is the most prominent emotion that I felt over, this thing that happened at work with one of my clients. And I'm now questioning myself as to whether or not I did the right thing. And so I'm mixed about, I'm feeling stressed, but I'm also feeling like justified, but I don't know if I did it right or not. And I share that with her. If I'm in recovery, if I've had an addiction before, that's the stuff that would most likely knock me off kilter into the acting out anyway. But the focus is now on the discussion of, she gets to hear my heart. She gets to hear the inner goings of my mind and kind of like what's going on with my emotions. And then she gets a chance to practice holding it, which she needs the practice of. Because if I come home and I say, I'll give you an example. This is bad. This is a bad one, Brannon. Like probably like 10 years ago, I've worked this like job at UPS for a long time to keep my medical benefits. And one day, when you work like crazy hours, it was like I was getting up at like 1 a.m. I came in the day before. I had a couple that I'd worked with for like 3 years in my practice come in and I thought they were well through the woods. They were doing so good. They came in and were like, hey, Tyler, we're getting divorced. And they were a kind of couple that I was like, after all this work we've done, I thought you guys would figure this out. And like, nope, we're done, And I was like, so I was already kind of feeling a little bit like a failure. And then I went into UPS and I got in a fight with one of the drivers verbally. And he didn't know what he was saying, but he said, listen to yourself. Like, you call yourself a therapist? Who would ever go to you for therapy?
He knew exactly what to lob at you.
And he didn't know like what had happened the day before. And I lost it. I mean, I was jumping over conveyor belts. I was like getting ready to throw boxes at his head,
like you're crazy, man.
I snapped. I lost it. So I should have lost my job there. Instead,
thank goodness for the union.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Instead, I go home. So my boss pulls me outside, basically puts me in timeout and says, hey, Tyler, you need to go home right now. Like, we don't know what the discipline's going to be, but you can't do this. Obviously, he was right. So I go home and I'm like in tears and I'm just like sobbing and I'm just like frustrated. And I walk through the door. My wife's there and she's like, geez, Tyler, what's going on? And I'm like, you got to hear this. Like, let me tell you. And I started talking to her and I was like, I pretty much almost got in a fist fight today at work and I'm probably going to lose my job. And my wife started by going, oh my gosh, Tyler, what's going to happen now? We're going to lose our benefits. And then what's this? And what's going to happen to your reputation? And I had to stop her and I had to say, hey, babe, like, we can address all that stuff. But right now, I just need like 2 minutes of a landing space for you to listen. And she said, she walked away. She came back 30 seconds later. She sat down next to me, put her hand on my lap and said, okay, Tyler, I want to hear what's going on. And I told her the whole story. And she sat there and was like, oh my gosh, Tyler, that sounds so hard. And I imagine you're feeling so stressed and you're probably feeling so frustrated and you're probably feeling pretty confused and maybe a little bit fearful. And I said, that's exactly how I'm feeling. And then she gave me a hug. She said, it's going to be okay, regardless of what happens. And I let her hug me for a second. And then And then I said, and by the way, I don't blame you for being stressed out. I'm sorry. But and then we were able to have a discussion about what was going to happen. If we hadn't been learning how to check in with each other that way, my wife wouldn't have been able to hold that space for me in that moment. And it was vitally important in that broken part of my life for her to be able to be there as the landing space, the same way I want to be that for her. And that's the practice that we should be looking for when we're checking in.
Okay, Tyler, let me ask you this. I agree. I love all that. And you said something earlier that if we're checking in about the actual stuff going on in our lives, then you kind of address the underlying triggers to the acting out behavior. But I don't think we're saying that you can't talk about that. And so, like, if let's say me and my wife are both in really, really, really solid recovery, right? And I'll just make up a scenario here. I'm on a business trip, and I'm stressed. I'm tired, but I'm on a business trip in like Mexico, and I go down to the beach and there's topless women everywhere. Okay. So it's like I'm stressed. I'm trying to recover from the sex addiction, and there's women everywhere, right? And so all day long, I'm just thinking, I just want to escape to my addiction. I just want to escape. There's triggers everywhere. There's like, I just need to get, I just want to escape. And so then I call my wife. And she says, how was your day? And I said, it was rough. And I tell her what I just said. I say,
I'm triggered.
I'm stressed. I'm tired, and I'm triggered. And there's like women everywhere. And I just want to escape to lust and just get a break from it all. I haven't, but I totally want to. Let's say I say that to her. Okay. She's not my sponsor.
Right.
Okay. But she is my spouse. So she is the person in my life who's closest to me, who hopefully is safe enough to love me and see me. Okay. At this point in the game, I haven't broken trust. I haven't been unfaithful. I've been tempted to do some things that would break trust.
Yeah, you've been hurting, like you've been right on the edge of, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So my spouse's job in that moment, so in a good, healthy relationship, I could be that transparent with her. Like, this is how I'm feeling all day. Totally want to indulge in just lust and get out of it all. That's how I'm feeling, right? And in that moment, is it okay, Tyler, to ask her to hold space for that?
Well, I think it's always okay. She may not be in the frame of mind or emotion to be able to do that in the moment, especially if there's been a breach of trust and there's some trauma, because there's going to be a big response that comes up. But yeah, I think that's the whole discussion we're having here is that for couples that are learning to basically get better, eventually they have to grow into a place where they can practice holding those kinds of conversations.
They talk openly and are transparent about everything. About emotions, about sexuality, about spirituality.
But there's
about
safety
everything
in the relationship to be able to have that conversation on both sides.
But in the rebuilding of that safety, Tyler, you got to have some of those uncomfortable conversations that are triggering to both sides to know that we can navigate this together, that we can do this. And if you never try it, then, or if it's just about fear and control, then you'll never actually learn how to do it.
Right. And I'd say, like, when you're earlier on in the process, there's maybe some other things to help bridge the gaps that are inevitably going to be there. And so let's take your example for a minute, Brannon. That's what's happening for you. You want your primary place to be, your primary landing space to be with your wife, but she's also, if you guys are early on in the process of recovery, if you go home and tell your wife that thing, her response is likely to not be able to hold the space that you hope she can in that moment. So because she's not practiced at it enough, and she's not been able to get through her own trauma yet. So what I'd suggest in the same scenario is that you have that day that you just had, you reach out to a couple of men that are on your team, you process those emotions, you share them openly, you continue to develop your game plan, you keep doing your own work to kind of like build your own heart. And then you end up in a conversation with your wife and she says, how is your day? You get to also say, actually, it was everything you just said. And here's what I was doing about it. I've called so-and-so and I've been doing these things. And this is how I'm trying to cope differently, even though it's been really, really hard for me. And there's a piece of me that's just feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Now what's happened is that you've been able to do your own individual work without having to rely on your wife to fix it.
Yep.
You're still giving your wife honesty. You've gotten some validation and empathy from a source that can hold it in the moment. And now you're giving her a chance to practice hearing and receiving those things. And if she doesn't hold it in the moment, she gets a chance to go and do the same thing
Work
that you
her
just
own
got
recovery.
done doing. She gets a
Work
chance to
her own
go, whoa,
recovery.
this is too much for me. I don't know how I feel about it. Give me some time, give me some space. I'm going to fall into some safe places, talk to some of my people, get some perspective, get grounded, and then I'll come back and let you know what I'm thinking, feeling, what my boundaries are for this.
Right. But Tyler, there's this, what you're saying is awesome. I think people should rewind what Tyler just said and set up a system like this. But there's this really hard part of it, which is a lot of partners want to be the first person that is making sure that you're staying sober. So don't call your sponsor, don't call your group members, don't call me and tell me that, and there's this uncomfortable space of letting go of their recovery, of allowing them to be proactive in their own recovery, in knowing that they're going to do it despite whether you're there or not. And the only way that you'll really trust them is to know that.
Right. And this comes back to, sometimes a betrayed spouse hears the conversation we're having and feels judged or feels misunderstood, but it comes back to, what is your overall goal? If your overall goal is to allow there to be space for attunement, empathy, and trust, I'm going to need to allow there to be space for that kind of work to happen. Listen to my example. Like, there's all sorts of trust that's being rebuilt in that, even though it's still uncomfortable to have the discussion.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, my partner now gets to hear he's struggled. He's being open about his struggles. He's doing something about his struggles. He's bringing this to me, even though it's not fun, and it's not fun for me to hear.
There's honesty, transparency.
There's transparency. And if he's also being boundaried on a certain level, and she's like, well, tell me this and this and this, how, like, what was the cup size of all the ladies on the beach? It's like, that's not important, right?
Or that's not something that I feel like we need to answer right now.
That's not something that I think is going to be helpful for where we're trying to go. Where are we trying to go? We're trying to go to a place of safety, empathy, trust.
Right.
And so is this conversation going to help yield that? And sometimes the answer is going to be, yeah, it's going to be a little bit tense, but it's actually building trust.
Yeah. Some of the most uncomfortable, open conversations that have boundaries in them are the ones that build the trust the most. Right.
Right.
There's this space that has to exist in order for something to get built and rebuilt. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago about taking risks and taking chances, and then you get the reward on the other end. And unfortunately, intimacy works the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this, it's in interdependent relationships, which are healthy relationships. My wife, right now, I don't know what my wife's doing exactly. She could be driving over to her boyfriend's house for all I know. But I know that she's not. I know that she's not because I'm controlling her, not because I have a camera on her right now or I'm watching her. I just trust her and I know that. And so I don't need to make sure that she's connected to me all the time to really feel that she's connected to me and safe again. And so for a couple where the trust has been shattered, they have to navigate those waters and take those risks in order for trust to get reestablished again and in order for strength to show up in the relationship again.
And they also need to have practice and repetition with those kinds of things because it is hard. It's messy. But that's how it gets reestablished, and that's how it gets rebuilt.
I was working with a woman who was her husband's sponsor, and she also was her husband's tracker on all of his devices. So she would track all of his phone, his computer, his everything, right? And she was diligent every day, and she was wearing out. But every day she was looking at history, she was paying attention to everything and making sure. And like you were saying earlier, Tyler, I sat her down and I said, we need to, let's stop all that. And she took it like, oh, you're on his side.
Yeah, right. That's
and what she didn't see was how much I was trying to fight for her, to say, I want you to know whether he's trustworthy or not. I don't want you to gain an ability to trust yourself to babysit him. I want you to gain an ability to either know whether you're in a safe relationship or not. Right. And in order for you to do that, you're going to have to let go of some of these things, which, by the way, is going to be really good for your mental health anyways. And then you can kind of watch and see whether he's a safe partner or not.
And whether he's working to be a safe partner.
His own recovery.
He's working to become
his own
a safe
recovery.
Partner. Right.
That's real recovery.
Right.
Not compliance-based. Be perfect, be exactly what you need me to be recovery, which is a manipulative fake thing. So good discussion, Tyler.
It's a good discussion.
Yeah. All right. We didn't mention our conference, did we?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll do a really shameless tie into this. All right.
Okay.
So actually, there's probably a number of you men who are listening to this episode right now and going, you know what? I've heard about the conference. I know I'd like to go to the conference, but I don't want to be honest about my feelings because it's going to take time and money and resources away from our family. And if you've been contemplating that, if there's been something pressing on your heart, you need to go be honest about it. You need to make it a priority. These things are life-changing. And our conference is coming up September 22nd through the 25th. It's at risingsun.org, risingsun.org. Go take a look at it. We're definitely selling out of these passes. There's probably just a handful left by the time.
At this point that they listen to this, it might be sold out.
It's possible.
Yeah, we got people from all around the world coming in. So it's awesome. So get on it. Yeah, don't procrastinate. Last year we had a wait list of a lot of men who weren't able to come because they waited too long. So be one of the ones that gets in, and we're excited to see you there.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for listening. Brannon, I want to mention one other thing. We found out this week as we're filming that our podcast hit 200,000 downloads total.
Nice.
And I just wanted to just express a heartfelt gratitude to everyone who's listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for helping us to become better. We appreciate that you guys are here on this journey with us.
Tyler, that's because you're such a big timer. So keep up the good work. We'll see you later, guys.